hello here. Fishing's a great outdoor activity and it helps you to explore our wonderful Australian waterways. But it's even more fun if you actually catch some fish, and that's exactly what I'm going to help you to do through this series. In part 1, we looked at choosing and buying your first set of fishing gear. Well, now we're going to put that gear together. We're going to fit the reel to the rod, fill it with line and get organised to go fishing. If you bought a combo, a rod and reel that's already been matched up and possibly even filled with line, then you're good to go. But if you bought your rod, reel and line separately, you'll need to put it all together. Fitting the reel to the rod is pretty straightforward. The spool of the reel faces up the rod and the reel's foot, which is this bit, goes under these little hoods on the rod's reel seat. And then we simply tighten it up, nice and firmly, but not too tight. You want to be able to get it off later. Now is also a good time to decide which hand you want to wind your reel with. Most spinning or threadline reels allow you to easily swap the handle from one side to the other. There are all sorts of theories about which hand you should wind with, but just go with what you feel most comfortable doing. Fit the handle to that side, tighten it up firmly, and if it has a little cap that goes on the other side, make sure you replace that as well, and do it up reasonably tightly, but just using your fingers. Okay, now we need to fill the reel up with line, and as I explained in part 1, there are various different kinds of line, and the people in the tackle shop will give you a good idea of what's likely to work best for you where you're going fishing. Listen to their advice. These days, a lot of keen fishers, people like me, love fishing with braided lines, but we also understand that they might not be the best choice when you're first starting out. I'd suggest that you kick off with some nylon monofilament line for your first fill up. And when you're choosing your nylon line, go for something light and thin, say 3 to 5 kilos breaking strain, about 6 to 10 pounds on the old scale. To spool up with your new line, take the end of the line and pass it down through 1 or 2 of the runners or eyelets on the rod. You don't need to go through them all. In fact, for this job, you only need the bottom half of your rod. Then you'll need to tie the line firmly to the core of the spool, but before you do, remember to open the bail arm. I'm using a big reel and some thick cord here to show you. Wrap the end of the line around the spool a couple of times and then tie a good strong knot. Something like a uni knot is perfect. Now don't worry if you can't follow it here. I'll show you exactly how to tie this handy knot in the next part of the series. Trim the knot, leaving a little tag end, and you can start winding line on. To actually spool up, it's really good to have a mate who can help you. You can do it on your own, but it's a little bit fiddly. The other thing that you'll need is an axle of some sort to go through the hole in the middle of the spool. You can use a pencil or a knitting needle or a chopstick. The handle on this wooden spoon is going to work just fine. Oh, and one other thing you'll need is something like a tea towel or a pair of oven mitts or some gloves to protect your helper's hand from friction burns. Now, head outside or into a nice big open room and we'll start spooling up. Your mate holds the spool on its axle, our spoon handle, while you wind line onto the reel. The line needs to go on under a bit of tension, which is why your helper should push on the ends of the spool with that tea towel. It's also really important that you squeeze the line between your finger and thumb up ahead of the reel. This also helps tension the line. That'll stop any loose loops and reduce tangles later. Swap jobs if you get tired, but keep going until there's enough line on the reel or you've wound it all on. So, how do you know when there's enough line on the reel? Some manufacturers tell you how much line the reel should hold, and a few even etch little marks on the spool to guide you, but in most cases you'll need to decide for yourself. This isn't enough line, and it'll make it much harder to cast a reasonable distance. This is too much line. The line will easily spill off the spool and it might even tangle up. This is exactly the right amount of line, although if you're using braided line, you should put a little bit less on. Well, there you go. Your rod's on your reel and it's full of fresh new line. We're almost ready to go fishing. But in the next part, I want to teach you 2 really good knots and also show you how to build some effective fish catching rigs. Then we'll be ready to go fishing. I promise. Until then, tight lines.